Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Ninja Knight. Make sure you like the video, make sure you share the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you. So here I have an article from Bleeding Fool, and they say that Sony are denying the Spider-Man rumours that are surrounding Spider-Man 3 from Sony and the MCU. So it seems to be no secret at the moment that Sony are looking to re-sign Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in a return into a sort of Spiderverse type of movie that they look like they're interested in making. I think with the success of Into the Spider-Verse, they have certainly opened new ground for themselves in this world. Now, with DC's recent talking about them opening up the multiverse, particularly in their movies, having already done so in the Flash TV show, that movie Bob tried to say that Marvel were getting a force on that one. Ridiculous stuff, but a great take from that guy yet again. We're getting to see what seems to be like the Marvel universe actually going to decide to open up the multiverse. Now, they look like they're going to do it through Doctor Strange. There was hints left with the Mysterio character in Spider-Man Far From Home, but as we know from that movie, Mysterio seemed to be a fake and a phony. They would probably retroactively retcon that maybe. We will wait and see how that happens. But I think that this is something that would pique an awful lot of people's interest. I've seen an awful lot of people that have suggested, and I suggested in the previous video of Jamie Foxx returning, that he was returning as Electro, perhaps from the Amazing Spider-Man 2. He has gone on record to say that he won't be blue in this movie. However, he did post some art of basically Electro as a storm, kind of Galactus-like cloud from the Fantastic Four that shouldn't really be mentioned, the Rise of the Silver Surfer, and there was 3 Spider-Men that were opposing him, which was very clearly Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Now, I've seen an awful lot of people that have been really wanting to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man back. Personally, as a massive Spider-Man fan, I thought Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was good. I never really thought it was something that hit the heights for me that I thought Spider-Man would be absolutely nailed. I feel the same way about Tom Holland. In fact, I actually don't really like the MCU Spider-Man whatsoever. They've talked about him needing another mentor, and the other mentor is going to be Doctor Strange. That's not Spider-Man to me whatsoever. After him essentially being Spider-Boy for the last number of movies and being Iron Man's protege, it looks like that Peter Parker is going to continue in this role of having to have someone above him, and I don't think it really works for the character personally. My favourite rendition of this character is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and I have to say, if he returns in this movie and is, in my opinion, rightfully lauded for the performance that he can give, I certainly hope that in some way, shape or form that the Amazing Spider-Man universe could continue. This opens a lot of avenues, I think, for the MCU, and particularly Sony. Sony could continue on with a Tobey Maguire series, they could continue on with an Andrew Garfield series, they will continue on with a Tom Holland series. So I'd be very interested to see how they decide to pan out on that one. We've seen DC have talked about bringing Michael Keaton back as Batman, and I think, in my opinion, they probably will push forward with Michael Keaton in some way, shape or form in future movies, whether they decide to continue on that Tim Burton verse or whether they decide to move him into different movies, kind of a la Nick Fury, as we've seen. We've seen that Sam Raimi, the director of Spider-Man 1, 2 and 3, has returned to Marvel in some sort of capacity and is directing the Doctor Strange 2 Madness in the Multiverse, I think that's called, movie. I wouldn't be surprised to see him feature some of these characters. There's alleged signings from Kirsten Dunst that have happened as well too. So I don't think he would be too surprised to see some of these characters returning in a multiverse sort of concept. I would be delighted, and I have to say, I would be ecstatic to see Andrew Garfield return once again as Spider-Man. For me, he perfectly nailed Spider-Man. Script choices and narrative choices aside from those movies, I think he was a fantastic Spider-Man. He was a fantastic Peter Parker, and I really liked his cast that were around him. I think everyone did a really good job. I think Sally Field, for me, really stole the show in those movies. I think she really felt like a mother, and she really felt like someone that was very concerned about Peter, where I haven't seen that in the MCU thus far. Marissa Tomei's Aunt May just seems like she doesn't really care. We have the original Aunt May from the Tobey Maguire movies. Again, another character that didn't seem like she really cared. Whereas I really felt that care coming from Sally Field's Aunt May, which is rightly what we should see. Ultimately, though, I think that this is a good move for Marvel. Marvel have heard about what DC are up to very clearly, and they are going to capitalise on that whole idea themselves and decide to bring back some fan favourites It's a good idea. Everybody wins. And I think then as well, seeing these three on screen together would be absolutely brilliant. There's murmurings at the moment of Tobey Maguire potentially being MCU Peter Parker's Uncle Ben. We'll see if that pans out. It would be very akin to what happened on the CW Flash TV show with his father and Jay Garrick. Would we see Marvel potentially copying something else? Absolutely. They've done it with Thanos on Darkseid. So Darkseid was a character that came and they did it with Thanos. They copied them off Darkseid. So it's not within Marvel's wheelhouse not to copy, and we will potentially see that. I think if they do feel like this is needed. We've seen it with Civil War. We've seen it with the Endgame time travel scene, which was something that Zack Snyder had within his Justice League. So we'll wait and see what happens. Ultimately, this is the news for the moment, and whilst I think that seeing these three men together would be great, it certainly just makes me yearn for more Amazing Spider-Man stuff. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh my god, they were the worst, but I think if you look at the whole picture of those movies, I really enjoyed them personally. I think that there was long-lasting effects. It shows the hope of Spider-Man, the hope of the character of Peter Parker, that he can get up and carry on. He didn't need anybody else. He was a genius inventor. He was very intellectual. He had his ways of getting in and out of places. He was compassionate, and I think that scene at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of the most hopeful scenes that you're likely to see on film. He comes out after grieving an awful death and spends months really upset about it, and then this little kid runs out to face the Rhino in his Spider-Man suit, and Peter Parker turns up, Spider-Man turns up, and decides to take the kid's place and fight the Rhino. I don't think there's anything more inspirational as that, and I don't think there's anything more Spider-Man than that one. I think he gets overlooked an awful lot, personally. I'm looking forward to see what happens with the future of these movies. I'm looking forward to seeing if this is the truth. Sony vehemently denying this pretty much confirms it, in my opinion. I think it'd be silly for Marvel and Sony not to use these popular characters, and we've seen that Marvel Legends have started to work in what they've called Marvel Legacy, so I think that's very possible that we could see this stuff starting to pop up. What do you think about this rumour? Do you think that bringing these multiverse characters in adds to the play value of the MCU, or do you think that could detract from this world somewhat? I know a lot of people like to have their fixed versions of characters. If you open a multiverse, it opens it up to very different things. You can bring in a new Iron Man, you can bring in a new Captain America, you can bring in a new Thor, for example, and they can all be quite akin to what they were in the comics. I have a feeling that this might be the way they'll try and bring in the X-Men and possibly the Fantastic Four, that this multiverse will open and they'll try and put these characters in from a different multiverse. I have a feeling that they might try and do that. They have already spoken about landing Ryan Reynolds in a massive contract for these movies as Deadpool. So very possible that these things could open up. What do you think about Electro returning as well too in these movies? Do you think he is going to be from the Amazing Spider-Man? Because that was a plot point I think that they left off a little bit within the Amazing Spider-Man 2, particularly with the Sinister Six. I mean, oh my god, could you imagine if they opened the movie with the Amazing Spider-Man fighting the Sinister Six in his universe? Oh, I'd love that, I would. What about if you seen Tobey Maguire opening up his movie where he's fighting Bruce Campbell as Mysterio? Because that was alleged as well too. That'd have been awesome. John Malkovich maybe as the Vulture as was originally intended. I mean, how cool would those be? I think this opens itself up to an awful lot of possibilities that are really good. I think with the likes of hiring Sam Raimi, Marvel knew what they were doing, and I think that this could be excellent stuff if it does come true. What do you think about the three Spider-Men? Who is your favourite and why? Do you think that the Amazing Spider-Man gets an awful lot of unnoticeable hate as well too? Because I think it gets a lot of hate as well that I don't think is right. Do you think that the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is oversaturated, or do you think that it's over indulged? People seem to have a very positive way of thinking about that, even though Spider-Man 3 was absolutely woeful. Spider-Man 2 gets an awful lot of plaudits, but Dr. Octopus in that one acts a bit strange for me. And personally, I think the MCU Spider-Man as well too doesn't really come off too well. Comes off as basically being Spider-Boy and an understudy to other characters. Do you feel the same way? What would you like to see post Endgame? Do you think that Spider-Man, a Spider-Verse film, could open something that is really interesting, or would you prefer to keep multiverses shut? Because I think for the normie audiences, it certainly becomes a lot more complicated when you start opening multiverses and there's three versions of a character. Will they latch onto those? What do you think? Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the share button as well too. Get the news out there. Brilliant to hear. Love hearing from the fans. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll talk to you later. Look.